What's up, everybody? I'm Dan. That's Michael. Welcome back to Mariners Forever. Let me start with an apology. We have not seen you, or you haven't seen us, I guess, whichever way it works, since before the trade deadline. And some stuff's gone down. Like, some stuff has happened, Michael, but just logistical things. And I've been on the move, and now I'm settled. And we got to get into this because there's only like 40-something games left, and this Mariner team is red freaking hot, finishing off a 9-1 homestand by sweeping the Rays yesterday. Michael, how are we feeling about your now second-place Mariners, a game behind the Astros? They ended up winning today while the Mariners were off. How you feeling about this ball club?
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Good to be talking Mariners with you and stuff. And man, an all-time homestand. Honestly, you got Ichiro. You basically put the Texas Rangers to sleep. A series that you could have easily have swept. You could have easily gone 10-0 this homestand. You took care of business. You pretty much knocked out almost anybody that could potentially knock you out of the playoffs. The playoffs seem looking to, I'm not going to say it, but it looks really, really good right now. But whether it's the playoffs or not, I think what matters most is that this team looks unbelievable right now. They look confident in their pitching at the starting level. I feel like their starting pitching has been, I think you and I have talked about it, a slight disappointment this year due to injuries, or just, I think us being a little bit like, you're used to what last year was, and that was never going to be replicated. But that seems to be coming around. Luis Castillo was fantastic, keeping the Mariners in the ball game against Tampa Bay before Cal Raleigh hit that magical 3-run bomb in the 8th. Wu, again, continuing this incredible streak of 6+ innings going for him. And then the bullpen, I feel like we've now hit the point where Matt Brash is here. The Matt Brash that we were hoping, man, if he was healthy and ready to go. You can make a case that you've got two closers right now. And that's honestly, you're making it a 7-inning game now. We talked about Munoz making it an 8-inning game for opposing offenses. It might now be a 7-inning game where they better score because they're not going to score in the final 2 innings. And then this offense, we haven't been on since the deadline. Everything that we have asked for and begged for, not just for years, but for decades, Dan, of just please be an aggressive buyer. Just do a little bit more than the fringe. And not only did they do that with Josh Naylor, they went out at the deadline and got Eugenio Suarez. And, Suarez has not been good for Seattle since, and it hasn't mattered one bit because Randy's playing like an all-star. Julio is the hottest hitter on the planet right now. Cal Raleigh had a little bit of a slump. He's back. He's back on pace where we can start having that 60 home run question again.
Yeah.
This offense, I don't want to keep talking, but like Canzone, Cole Young, like there's so many guys. We can literally have a show about each and every single one of these guys because everyone is producing. And when Eugenio Suarez does show up and start producing, I think without a question, this is the best lineup in the American League. I think right now, this is the most well-rounded team in the American League, and they are playing like it. They just eliminated the Texas Rangers in my mind, and they pretty much eliminated the Tampa Bay Rays as well. Like, that is what championship teams do. They take care of their home ballpark. Plus, we had the Ichiro Hall of Fame weekend. That
was awesome.
For us Mariner fans, there's been a pretty horrible history of Hall of Fame and retirement ceremony weekends. We all remember Dedgar weekend and how poor that went. Yeah. Ichiro again was absolutely beautiful in his speech. It was so cool for us fans that haven't gotten to watch him or hear him speak like that for that long. It was honestly, I had chills. It was so cool. It just was it's been a magical run. The draft, the trade deadline, and this team since then, like is this what it feels like to be a real World Series contender? Is this what it feels like to be a Red Sox fan in their prime, the Yankees, the Dodgers? Like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, we're looking at World Series odds. Like right now, like that's on Fangraphs. I think we have the top odds to make the World Series or win the World Series out of the American League. Like, what is going on with the Seattle Mariners? I don't recognize this franchise right now.
It's fun. It's like that old viral video of the kid his dad's driving him home from the dentist appointment, and he's still kind of under anesthesia, and he wakes up and he goes, "Is this real life?"
Yeah,
exactly. I don't even know. And since this is our first time talking to the folks since the trade deadline, I do want to back up just a moment because heading into that, some things were trending in the right direction, right? Got Luke Raley back for a little bit. You know, Cal was doing his thing. Julio had really sort of settled into a nice groove. And so we were seeing the offense starting to grow anyway. Then you add Josh Naylor to the mix, and he immediately makes an impact. You can see how he lengthens the lineup, how he works pitchers. He's just a perfect fit, and we'll talk a lot more about him and his fit potentially beyond this season in a bit. And then as we got closer to the deadline, we kept seeing the reports of how aggressive they wanted to be. And then the Suarez buzz kind of died down. Even after the Yankees went out and went another direction at third base, the talk died down. And then Suarez got hit on the hand a couple of times. We weren't sure what his status was going to be. And in the day or two before the deadline, they pick up Caleb Ferguson, nice little lefty in the bullpen. There was a report the day before the deadline that they were shifting their focus to a high leverage bullpen arm. And that maybe they were done with offense, right? Maybe Suarez wasn't going to happen. They take a shot at Duran, they don't get him. And then right before the deadline, the hours leading up to the deadline, the reports come out that we get a Eugenio Suarez. And as you mentioned, he's got the one home run in the victory. He and Naylor both.
He had a good hit yesterday, an RBI yesterday. But yeah.
But the impact that he's making on this lineup is still undeniable, and we knew he's a streaky player. He's going to go on a run here sometime before the end of the season where he carries us for a week. We've seen that from other players this year. But it just meant so much for them to do what they did at the deadline because of the history here of falling short, because of the cynicism in the fan base. Once those reports came out right near the deadline, even though we got Naylor and Caleb Ferguson, people were already kind of, woe is me. We can't ever finish it off. We can't take that final step. And they end up getting Suarez. And now you feel the juice on this team. It's like they needed a spark. They were kind of flat, even when they were winning. And then Ichiro went out and challenged them on Saturday, and they responded on Sunday by coming out and really jumping on top of the Rays early, sending a message. This kind of feels like 95 in the sense that when they made the move for Andy Bennis at the deadline, it wasn't that Bennis lit the world on fire as a starter in the last 2 months after we got him. It's the message it sent to the clubhouse.
Absolutely. It's belief, right? It's not just belief in the clubhouse. Like Julio Rodriguez has been Mr. Optimistic this whole time. Cal Raleigh's kind of been the guy and JP has been a little bit of the, hey, we need more. And honestly, props to Jerry Dipoto and props to Justin Hollander. And I'm going to say it, I know I might get some shit here, but props to John Stanton for saying, go ahead and doing those things, right?
They added some money.
How much money was it? Not a ton. We're not talking about acquiring like Randy Arozarena. That was a sizable financial investment, and that is 100% worked out, by the way. Just an unbelievable trade that continues to pay off. We're getting a career year from Randy Arozarena. Again, one of the most exciting baseball players and yet the most underrated baseball player. It's fascinating the way that nobody ever talks about him. But props to John for making those moves. And again, it's just this weight got lifted, and it almost feels like that air, that marine layer air that hangs over this franchise over 2021. The way that they kind of choked, I don't want to say choked, the way they couldn't hold on against Houston in game 1, 2, and then the way they couldn't score at home in game 3 of that league division series in 2022. 2023 and 2024, just the way we came up short over and over and over, and the things that we spoiled, our rotation, magical seasons. And you felt that weight was even heavier this year because of what Cal Raleigh has been doing. I mean, he's the story of baseball still, like without question. He's probably going to win the MVP now if he keeps this up. It was like, oh my gosh, are we going to have an MVP 60 home run catcher and we're not going to make the playoffs? And then they go out and they make these moves, and it just feels like that 15-pound block on their back. It's like when Steve Young in the Super Bowl against the Chargers, get the monkey off my back. They still need to do it, right? And I think that's what everyone said. Good. Front office, kind of get off our ass, go win this division, go make the playoffs and go make a playoff run. And the team like immediately responded. 9-1, unbelievable, 7 wins in a row. The offense looks good. The pitching looks good. Everything looks good. And like, The Astros, I know they won today, but you're kind of feeling a little bit of like they're looking in the rearview mirror, seeing us, and it just feels like it's all coming together at the right time. And I think just getting that weight off their shoulders. And again, they're going to have a dry spell here. They're probably going to lose 3 out of 4 at some point. Like that's just baseball. But everything is there for them to really exercise some demons that have been around this franchise in the last couple of years and the last couple forever, essentially. Anything's on the table, dream big is kind of the vibe right now. And I think the whole city, the fan base, you feel it on social media. You feel it in the writing with the writers that are following this team. Like it's all around you. It's just, it's what baseball does when you play every single day. Whereas football, it's that week to week type of buildup. This is just like this high that we're all on, and you're just hoping that it doesn't come down.
Well, in this city, it's been a debate for quite some time, whether it's a football town or a baseball town. And I've always said, as much as this town loves their Seahawks and their Huskies and their football, you give them reason to believe in this baseball team, and they turn out in droves. I mean, the lines on Saturday to get in time to see Ichiro's speech were wrapped all the way down past Sluggers, which is beyond the end of Lumen Field, on the next block over. Unbelievable vibe in the stadium this weekend. And as you mentioned, you can see in doing what they did over the last 10 days, not just gaining the ground on Houston when it kind of looked like they were going to be tough to catch a month ago, but also putting so much distance between themselves and the Rangers, now 5.5 games separating the two. And then in the wild card standing, same kind of thing, where now they own the number 1 wild card spot, which is huge, right?
Yeah. Yep.
A game
for those that don't know, that means even though you don't win the division, you would host your wild card series. So if the season ended today, the Mariners would host the Yankees for a 3-game series.
Yeah, huge. And they've got a shot if they get into the division lead to even get an opportunity they're not that far out of like getting a home series, maybe even getting a bye. So it's unbelievable how much has changed in the last couple of weeks. Let's talk some more about some of the individual performances. We talk about since Josh Naylor came over and the change that we saw in this lineup, and there may be some reinforcements on the way too. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. This
is just a little tidbit. This is a great little capsule from Adam Jude the other day, who does such a great job covering the team. This is how impactful Naylor's been since he joined the Mariners. In 93 games with the Diamondbacks this year, 11 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a 121 OPS plus. In the 15 games with the Mariners, 4 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 167 OPS plus. What's with the stolen bases? Because we showed it here. Let me show this again. This does not look like a guy that would get 11 stolen bases in 15 games, let alone 22 in a season.
Yeah, man, that is apex 2025 male baseball player right there. That is what you should be striving for, apparently. No, I mean, there's something to be said about what Dan Wilson has done as the manager. Another guy I have not spoken about. Give him props. He got the tools and he immediately redid his lineup, and they've been a juggernaut minus 1 game since then. In that one game, they were going against an all-star pitcher in Rasmussen before Cal came through. But Dan has preached this aggressiveness from the moment he became the manager. I'd have to go back and check. I'm not sure, but we have to be one of the top 4 or 5 base stealing teams in baseball. And it's not like we have a premier stolen base guy. Like, we have good speed, but like, that's kind of what has made this Cal Raleigh story so interesting. It's not just the home runs. It's that he might mess around and get 15 or 20 stolen bases, like half joking, but oh my gosh, you look around, like you're starting to look at it. It's not that far off. Like, Julio hasn't even been this incredible base stealer that he kind of was as a rookie and stuff. But Randy, like, just all these guys, they're all stealing bases. And then you have Josh literally come in here right away, 11 stolen bases in 15 games. Like, that's an incredible pace. And not one time has it even been close. So whatever Dan, a catcher, and our manager, whatever he is teaching this team and whatever the offense has figured out, they have mastered the tell of the pitcher that they're going against, or they know what they've got and what they can't do against the opposing catcher. Because every time we steal a base, I think I saw something, we went like 20 games where we had a certain amount of stolen bases without even getting caught. Like, it's not just that we're stealing at free will and we're not getting caught ever and stuff. And it's just, again, I go back to like, I know in some teams, in some areas, like this style of baseball is dead, but I just look at like what the Kansas City Royals did a couple years ago. Like they didn't have superstars on offense, but they put so much pressure constantly on opposing teams that in the playoffs, some of these teams that were way better than them just cracked because anytime someone got on first, they got to second base without an out, and you were just constantly putting that pressure on. And I feel like it hasn't let up at all with this lineup. And not only are you not letting up, now when they get on base, they're not letting up and putting themselves in scoring position. And nobody is like, they're not going to steal a base. Maybe Polanco. Yeah. Right. But even Polanco played second base the other day. Like he's starting to get healthy. Like it's just, it's an equal opportunity thing right now where it's so much fun to watch. It makes baseball exciting. I miss stolen bases. I love this type of stuff. And I'm excited to see that brought back. It's not just walks and bombs. Like there's more to it than that. And Josh, man, just what a perfect fit attitude wise. I know you and I had talked about, we kind of need a guy that's got a little bit of attitude and that has kind of
little grit.
Been there. Like, people, for those that don't know, Josh Naylor is like a known Yankee killer in the playoffs. He has a lot of postseason experience, has a lot of success in the playoffs. We're going to need that if we're going to get to where we want to go as a team this October. And Gino hasn't affected the team offensively yet, but in the clubhouse, it's there. The vibes are there. You can feel it. You can hear it from Cal Raleigh and others. And Josh, it's the same thing, just in a different way. It's, hey, let's go win this thing. Let's not screw around. Let's not play with our food. Like, let's get ourselves in such a good spot we can set up our rotation for the playoffs instead of, we need this team to lose so we can get it on the last day of the year.
Another guy that's really benefited from the additional bats in this strengthened lineup is Julio Rodriguez. And it hasn't just happened since the acquisition of Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez. He was starting to heat up a couple of months ago, really his last 30 games, hitting .280 on the season with 12 home runs over the last month. But in the homestand in particular, just the last 7 games, 345, 387, 759. That's a heck of a slash line. It's kind of the perfect storm for him of he really seemed to find something. He was making more contact, better contact, I think, early this season, but it wasn't translating to power. He wasn't getting the ball in the air. He was starting to do that, and then the reinforcements arrived, and now it just it feels like we're seeing the best version of Julio Rodriguez maybe that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, was that 2023 in August when he got like 20 hits in a row? Like, then that's something that's just, we'll probably never see that type of a run again from him just because of how ridiculous it was. But no, absolutely. I believe after the Yankee series, when we got swept in New York, I wanted to say he was 4 for 48. And since then, he's been one of the 10 to 12 best hitters in all of baseball since then. And a lot of that was his speed, just getting better contact. And then all of a sudden we get these additions, and then Dan Wilson moves Cal to second and moves Julio to third. And I feel like it just like snap, all of a sudden the power returned. And that might be the temperature. That just might be this time of the year. We know Julio gets better as the season moves along, but we haven't seen this level where for about a month now, he's been one of the 10 to 12 best players in baseball. You add that to Cal, to Randy, to Gino, to JP. Our JP's hitting 9th. Like, again, I keep hitting this thing over the head. Like, this lineup just has so much length. There's no weak spots. I believe right now every single player has a WRC plus above 100 in the lineup, which is, unheard of. And then on top of that, you have like 3 guys, 4 guys, maybe even 5 guys that are like playing legit top 10 to top 15 MVP style, like Cal, Julio, Randy, Gino this season. And then the way Josh is playing right now, like, all 5 of those guys, if you told me that they're ranked in the top 15 or 20 of MVP voting, I would be like, oh yeah, I don't doubt that. Like, that is the way they're playing right now. Will that continue? I don't know, but there is no let up right now. It is absolute taxing the pitching staffs and bullpens that are having to face these Mariners. There is no rest. There is absolutely no rest. It's unbelievable.
Someone else who's been pretty damn good too is the youngster at second base, Cole Young.
Yeah.
He is up now on the year to 253 with a 341 on base percentage. And that is after a 1 for 19 start. He just, I heard I heard the fans, and I kind of also felt that sinking feeling. You know, we have a little PTSD here in the Pacific Northwest with young guys being called up that are supposed to be the next big thing. Certainly at second base, we're all going to see visions of Dustin Ackley out there again, right? Just banging the ball into the turf and grounding out to the right side every time when he was supposed to win batting titles. I mean, that's what we were expecting when he was taken number 2 overall out of North Carolina. And Young gets off to that start, and we could kind of hear the woe is me, right? But ever since then, the bat to ball skills that we saw, you know, when he coming out of high school, Jared DePoto, when they took him, said best bat in high school that year.
Yeah.
We're seeing it. He's playing a really solid second base, and he just looks like a mainstay. He just looks like a guy that's going to hold down that spot for a very, very long time. And we're even seeing some pop out of him. He's got 3 long balls.
Yeah, that I want to say that was that the Rangers that he broke the hit it here at Cafe.
370. There were a lot of people that thought maybe StatCast got that one wrong. I think it was the second longest home run.
That thing exploded. That was unbelievable. Yeah. And that's the type of power we have seen. We have seen it in those highlights in the minor leagues and stuff when he was on his full heater and basically banging down the door to get onto the Mariners. And that's great. Like having that type of power is really nice to see. But and the consistency that we're seeing from him right now is so exciting at this level. And like you said, after the 1 for 19, but I think one thing that we might not have really accounted for, and who knows if this will stay long term, but for right now, he is kicking opposing pitching's butt when it comes to seeing the pitches right now. An excellent walk rate. His strikeout rate is, I want to say it's less than like 8% right now. What was it, 2 nights ago? He had 4 walks. Like you just don't see that type of stuff.
No, you don't. It was so weird. I checked my phone that night, wanted to see how they're doing because I was busy, and I saw that he was 0 for 3, but he had 3 walks.
Yeah,
you just don't see that very often.
No, it's just you can just tell like he feels comfortable. He's seen it. He's not forced in anything, and you kind of hit it. Like we have a horrible history of rushing guys up, and I don't disagree with that. I think the bigger problem was always the situation we put them in. Not only was rushing, but there was no help. Like Julio is the only guy that's kind of been able to withstand having not much help at the start. And part of that had to do with Cal Raleigh developing quicker than we thought and JP becoming more of a hitter than we thought. But even then, Julio was really carrying the weight for about 2 or 3 years. You know, Zunino, Ackley, all these guys just had no help whatsoever, and they also failed themselves. But Cole, you couldn't have thought of a better situation for Cole Young to walk into. Like 10 years ago, Cole Young's batting 3rd or 2nd on this team, right? He's hitting leadoff. Like we're putting that pressure on him. We even did that with Kelenic, right? A very good example of a similar type of hot streak getting up to the bigs and just like, oh, here you go. We need you to save our offense. We're not asking Cole Young to do that. Just be close to average at second base, and that's going to get us to the playoffs. And he says, sure, I'll do that and then some right now. And it just continues again. There are no weak spots in this lineup right now.
He only has 1 stolen base on the season. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy that's taken off and run a lot, but with those contact skills and his strike zone awareness, can you see him at some point in his career being a leadoff hitter for us?
Yeah, I could. I think when he got drafted out of Clemson, which again, that Dustin Ackley comp, an ACC, just stud hitter, you kind of felt like, oh man, is this going to happen again? But the talk about him was, oh, you can pencil him in as a potential 15 to 20 home run guy, but he's definitely going to get you 20 plus doubles and he's going to steal you 20 bases. So like in his prime, he might be a 20-20-20 guy, which you're like, sweet, I'll take that with a 1st round pick. Like that's what you're hoping for. And again, like you said, the power hasn't exactly been there this whole time, but it doesn't matter, man. If you got on base skills like that, if you can see pitches like that in the leadoff spot, even in today's game where you'll see even the best players hitting leadoff, like I think Dan's still old school enough that whatever the future looks like in the next 2 seasons with JP Crawford and what it looks like at third base and stuff, like there's a very clear path where I could definitely see Cole Young hitting first and then Julio and Cal come right behind him. And I'm all for that. I'm excited about that potential if he really is going to be able to see pitches that well.
This is what the road trip looks like. 3 in Baltimore. And as much as Baltimore is struggling, the Mariners have struggled against them recently. So Hopefully, yeah, in their ballpark. So hopefully we can get off that schneid. And then the New York Mets, who are in second place in the NL East, 6 games back of the Phillies, but have lost 9 of their last 10. And then the Phillies themselves, who sit in first place in that division, and they've won, I think, 8 out of 10. So we a mix here on this East Coast swing of hot and cold teams. But an important homestand. They got to keep this going. They got to keep the pressure on the Astros. We'll put their schedule up in a minute. But what do you think of this? What do you think of this road trip coming up?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where you go to Baltimore and championship teams go in there and get 2 out of 3. And like if that's what you want to be, like you need to put them down. That is a very tough lineup, despite everything that has gone wrong this year. But that is a rotation that you can take advantage of. And I would love nothing more to see Geno kind of get away from Seattle for a couple weeks and really, let's get back to that Arizona Diamondback slugger MVP candidate that we acquired. The Mets are in free fall. They're looking at potentially maybe even falling out of the playoff race at this point. I think they have a 1-game lead at the moment in the wild card. And one interesting thing about that is that the 17th, if I'm correct, that is Sunday Night Baseball at Williamsport. Mm-hmm. So that is going to be when the Mariners play the Mets at Williamsport on national TV, which, again, hopefully it's a good week leading up into it, but what a time to have our Mariners be on national television, getting to play the Mets in Williamsport. All those kids from across the world and across the country playing baseball there, they get to meet Big Dumper. Like, that's just so cool.
And one of those teams, this was just finalized over the weekend, Bonnie Lake, Washington.
Look at them. Look at that.
Right
that's
there.
So cool.
Yeah. They'll get to see their heroes. Meanwhile, the Astros.
But really quick, I was just going to say, and then I think when you go to Philadelphia, you know this really well, Dan. When the Seattle Seahawks went to the MetLife to play the Giants during their Super Bowl season, they treated that road trip differently than all the other ones. That was a business trip. That was a rehearsal, as they called it. Like, I think that's a very real chance if you're dreaming big, that this is not the only time we're going to Philadelphia this year. And I really hope the Mariners treat it like that. I think that is how you have to treat that series. That is a measuring stick. We may lose 2 out of 3. That's okay. We may win, we may sweep, but the idea is that we're going to come back here and we're going to see these guys again.
Now, the Astros schedule coming up. They are at home right now. They finish up. They beat the Red Sox tonight, unfortunately. I think it was 7-6, and so that's why it's a full game lead now. They have 2 more against Boston at home. Then they face the Orioles for 3 at home. Then they go on the road, 3 at Detroit, 4 at Baltimore, and then they play Colorado after that. So a pretty favorable schedule for them as well, just putting more pressure on the Mariners to try to keep the heat on, keep this thing going.
Yeah, and again, this might be a situation where they're both not just fighting for the division, but you saw they got Detroit on their schedule. That's how they can catch Detroit for the 1 seed. Like, this might not just be a division title race. This might be the winner of this gets the 1 seed and the loser falls all the way to the 4. Like, that is, I think, a very realistic thing on the table right now.
Let's circle back to Naylor and Suarez, because I think it's a really important conversation to be had about what happens after this season. We know that Jerry Dipoto loves his contract control, and that he typically over his tenure here has shied away from rentals, maybe a bullpen arm here and there, but he likes control, right? He was willing to give up significant prospect capital to get Luis Castillo because he knew he had a couple years left on his contract. He was able to convince him to sign here long-term and sign an extension. He trades for Randy Arozarena. He's willing to pay the freight to bring him in because he had a couple years left on his deal. We'll see what happens with him after this offseason. He's got 1 year left of arbitration. Naylor and Suarez are both legit, unrestricted free agents. And with the new rules in baseball, you cannot offer either of them the qualifying offer. So that's not on the table available to them. The idea of, hopefully, now that you have these guys in the building, maybe they just love it here, right? And you have the advantage over some other clubs that might be bidding on them in free agency because now they're familiar with what's happening here. Obviously, Suarez has the history here. Naylor just seems like a fit. There is a gaping black hole in the organization at first base, especially after trading Tyler Locklear to the Diamondbacks to get Suarez. There's nothing coming in the pipeline as far as obvious answers at first base. Naylor's market wasn't quite as robust leading up to the trade deadline as some analysts thought. That's why the Mariners were able to make the move a little earlier. Didn't really cost as much as some were saying. That maybe that's an indication of what the interest in him would be in the offseason. He's not your typical first baseman. He's short, squatty, right? We talked about the body. He's had a 30 home run season, but that's not really his game. And that tends to hold prices down a little bit for a first baseman. I'm seeing a lot of projections out there. He's 28 years old. He's in his physical prime. I'm seeing like 5 years, 100 million, maybe 4 years, 100 million, somewhere in that $20 to $25 million average annual value. What do you think the odds are? Do they have any shot to maybe convince this guy to stay? He certainly seems to like it here. He even said he likes the batting eye.
Yeah, I'm curious if that was sarcasm, but so far everything he's shown shows he might actually like the batting eye, because he's looked like a legit all-star slugger since he's put on that Mariners uniform. You know, it's interesting because I think that 5 for 110 is probably like my first real offer. And we don't know what Seattle has financially. I've heard whispers that the route, the $20 a month thing has been an absolute hit for them. You seem to hear less and less from reporters of the financial constraints. Everything we heard going up to the deadline is that the Mariners and ownership were going to be flexible and that they knew that they had something this year. And that might just be because they know they have an absolute wave that we're going to talk about here later of hitting prospects that are all within 1 to 1.5 seasons away. It kind of looks like, give or take. But like you said, a black hole at first base may even be an understatement. And so that's a situation where I don't know if 5 for 110 gets him to Seattle to stay in Seattle. But this is the kind of player I would be interested in, because he's not the kind of guy that's going to get an insane deal where he's going to make, $1.35 more than what his production is going to be. He's 28. 5 years at his style of play should age very well as long as he keeps his body healthy. But I also feel like, if there's a fit, that's great. And anytime Jerry has acquired someone, it does seem like we have done a good job of keeping them once we got them here. It's not always that way, but Polanco is a good example. Carlos Santana was going to come back before his hometown, Cleveland squad offered him a great spot. And remember, Cleveland had just gone within a couple games of the World Series. And so it made a lot of sense to go do that. Like Jerry and Justin, for their flaws that people may have, they do a good job of identifying Mariners, I think is a good way to describe it. And I can't think of a better fit. And I would 100% be down for 5 for 110 because he's not 31. He's not 30. He's 28. You're going to get him for a good amount. You need him. The only catch 22 here is, let's say the Mariners doing the West and they win 1 or 2 playoff series and they hang some banners or they go to the World Series. They win the whole thing. That would be amazing. You might, now that 5 for 110, if Josh played a significant role in that, which you probably need him to get to that point, now you're looking at an insane number. And now you're getting more towards that, $1.35 on that. And it's like, okay, is it worth it? But then again, what has he financially provided for this franchise by winning the division, extra playoff games, extra home playoff games? It's all worth it and stuff. And so, whereas Gino, you got to talk about age and how the fit, and how much was this year a one-off or a continuation of something that might be sustainable. Josh seems like he's been the same guy he's been for the last 4 or 5 years. And I think he might continue to be that for the next 4 or 5 years. And at first base, yeah, everybody wants to have that crazy slugger. But I think there's really something to say about what Naylor can provide this franchise of stability at a position that they have not had for a long time.
I just love his intensity.
Exactly. Yeah. He's a dog, man.
I will say this because, and again, I get it. And I also am on the same page oftentimes with some of the cynicism when it comes to this ownership group, right? If you're sitting out there listening to this conversation, you're thinking to yourself, oh, that they can't. They'll never convince him to stay. They can't bring him back. They can't afford to. They won't spend the money, right? I just did a little quick math here of guys, veteran players that are on expiring contracts, right? Mitch Garver's not going to be back. We can Donovan Solano is not going to be back. And you can even figure, with their current payroll as they sit here today, according to Spot Track, is about 162 million. Their cash total is 189. That includes some other things like deferred payments and guys that aren't on the roster anymore that they're still picking up some of the cash for, et cetera. But so you can include what they're currently paying Suarez and Naylor as well. And then even Jorge Polanco. And you can make a case that maybe he could come back again next year as well. That's $32 million that's not going to be on the payroll next year. You can absolutely include, you can make a very aggressive offer for Josh Naylor. And there's going to be some raises and arbitration, some of the young pitchers and thing, maybe an extension or two handed out. It just seems like the timing for this might be absolutely perfect because the other needs won't be as plentiful if you can lock up a guy like Naylor, as opposed to some other off seasons like the one we just had, where you feel like you got to go out and get 3 or 4 bats to make this work. You lock him up, regardless of whether or not you can convince Suarez to come back for another year or two as well. But now, as you mentioned earlier, that wave of hitters we have coming just keeps getting closer and closer. And some of those guys might realistically be in position to make their debuts in 2026.
Yes.
It just seems like an all-out assault on re-signing Josh Naylor is in the cards, something they should do, something I think they will do. And you touched on something, and I'm glad you did. The Root Sports thing, whether it's created a windfall financially for them yet or not, I hear there's still some clunky issues with the actual app itself. Those things can be worked out. There's just less uncertainty now that there was a year ago because they just didn't know once Xfinity did what they did and moved them off of their sports tier and made them an a la carte choice. They just didn't
might have been
know.
a blessing in disguise.
Right. They didn't know how many subscribers they were going to use. So they had to be conservative with their budget. It's just like if you and I are trying to make a budget for the next year and we don't know how much we're going to make from our jobs, it makes it a little tougher, right?
Exactly.
So you put those two things together. Plus you go out and you have a playoff run. Guess how many apps you're going to sell?
100%. And I think a great example is the place where I do my day job. I had 2 people last week. This just speaks to what a trade deadline can do and what a hot start can do and stuff. They said, hey, how do you do that? Oh, well, I you got the app. And they're like, what do you mean that it's on the app? Because everyone talks about Fubo like it's like this dark cloud, right? I think is that Fubo is right what the streaming service everyone had to use back in the day and stuff.
Yeah,
and
because it had Root and YouTube didn't.
Exactly. And so I literally talked to both of them, and the next day they're both like, oh my gosh, I got the app and I saw Cal Raleigh hit the home run last night to beat the Rays. Like both of them the next day told me that they did that. And like, again, that's 2 more subscribers. And like, you just wonder what bringing Gino back. Gino was beloved, and Josh Naylor might not be the most well-known guy, but you turn on the TV, he's an exciting player, right? He looks like some of us. And he's going out there and he's kicking butt and stuff. And so you just see this run. You get to see the Ichiro stuff that's going on. And it's just, it's an exciting ball club. And there's I would be stunned if we're not seeing a massive spike since the deadline in subscriptions because of that.
And now let's talk about Suarez. He's 33 years old, 34 as we sit here today. Hold on a second. Can you hear me typing? Let's just make sure we do this right. Because I want to make sure I get it right. Eugenio Suarez is, as we sit here today,
35.
Hang on, I may have to edit this. This is a little rough. Okay, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. He is 34. He'll turn 35 right around the All-Star break next year. Are we talking about maybe Nelson Cruz 2.0? Like a guy that
that's the question.
He doesn't have the range he used to at third base. And so maybe he's a guy that's going to start DHing more than he plays in the field. He's still adequate over there. He doesn't hurt you necessarily. He's just not the guy from 2 years ago that we thought got robbed of a Gold Glove.
Yeah.
But he can still make the routine play, and he's going to be a streaky hitter. But it's not just that he's going to give you 30 to 35 bombs, I think, even later in his career and provide some support in the kind of the back end of the middle of the lineup. Maybe as his career, advances, maybe he hits 6th, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's what he does in the clubhouse. It's the spirit he brings to this fan base and to this team. You've felt it from the moment he got here, and it's no surprise that they've only lost once since. And then It's the fact that I think he might be willing to do it. You know, I got a little worried when he was in Arizona and people started asking him about how he was going to feel if he got traded. And he said, I don't want to be traded. I love it here. I want to finish my career in Arizona. Well, immediately upon arriving in Seattle after the trade, he talked about how much he was happy to be here. His wife loves it here. It was one of the only places he hoped he would be traded to if he was traded. Now he's getting the love from the fans. Like Jerry Dipoto admitted on the record right after the trade, one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made, hated doing it, did it for reasons he didn't like. He's got a chance to make up for that.
Yeah, 100%. Where I think Josh Naylor might be this isn't to speak to him, and I don't know his agency and stuff, but it might be the best offer is what will get Josh Naylor. And that might be something that Seattle has to decide. Geno, I think there's a more realistic chance. Again, money always talks, but there might be a more realistic chance of, hey, this is where I want to finish my career. Mm-hmm. I would probably be hesitant to go past 3 years on a deal for him. But it might be one of those things where fourth year, and that fourth year is kind of a phony year, gets the job done. Like for me, I think if we give a good offer coming off of a division title or a deep playoff run, I think there's a real good chance you can get him to sign, maybe 5 to 10% less than what he might get from another team. It just depends on the fit and stuff. But again, years is the big security thing. It's not always about average annual value. It's the amount of years that you get from that. Yeah. But what I would start out, and I might be way off here, but I would start out with a 3-year deal, and I would give him a player option after year 1 and a team option after year 2. And I'm looking at something like 3 for 25 years. Sorry. So like I'd be looking at that 3 for 75, maybe even go to 80. And again, we do not know Seattle's financial stuff. They might only be able to afford one of these guys. It might be a situation if we can get both these guys and, in a few years, we know we're not going to have to pay a whole lot of offensive players for a while. Maybe that works itself out. But because if Geno comes back next year and hits 245 and hits 35 home runs, and he becomes that, I think we talked about it last time we were on the show, like a Victor Martinez kind of guy that aged really well into his career, or a Nelson Cruz is a perfect example. Like Nelson Cruz could have opted out each of those years that he was in Seattle and added like a chunk more money to what he did. And we saw that when he went to Minnesota. He got paid handsomely and he still had it for 2 more years before he really started to fall off that cliff. I don't think Geno is Nelson Cruz, but I definitely think that you can be somewhere in that realm. And that makes a lot of sense for a 3-year deal. Would you go to a 4th year? I don't know. I don't know if I would go to a 4th year because of just, again, the amount of infield talent that we have in the minors ready to go. But again, Geno feels like the kind of guy that 20 years from now, I'm going to see him at all these retirement ceremonies and statues and stuff and World Series celebration stuff that we'll be doing. He just feels like another guy that, again, I talked about this. He feels like a Mariner, and I think he wants to be here. And if there's a deal that makes sense, I don't know how you don't make a 2 to 3 year investment to keep him around.
Well, and because of the shared history and all the good vibes right now, I think we might be looking at a situation where, look, even if he goes out there and his agent talks to some other teams and you get some offers, maybe the Mariners say, hey, just could you bring anything to us before you think about signing somewhere else? And if we can match it, we'll match it. And something else that I slipped to my mind when I was playing around on my little phone calculator, a little bit ago, coming up with that dollar figure, 32.8 or whatever it was. Mitch Haniger is on the books for $14.5 million this year too. They're paying him too. That's on top of that number.
Yep.
So they could conceivably have between $40 and $50 million to spend this offseason. And to your point, if all they did with that money is bring those 2 guys back, maybe add 1 more bullpen arm.
Yeah.
Then as I think it was a great point you just made, because after that, you look at their rotation, you look at the bats that are coming, they're going to have opportunities, kind of like the NFL thing when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
You're going to have guys coming up over the next 2-3 years that are going to fill regular roles in this offense that are going to cost, pennies, rookie money for the first 5-6 years of their career. And they got pitchers coming too. I just think it's amazing how quickly it shifted from the doom and gloom in April and May when they got off to the rough start. I was even feeling it coming. it wasn't just the rough start. It was the rough start coming off the off season when we were all just gritting our teeth and just so bummed about their lack of activity in the off season. And then they come out at the beginning of the season and Jerry tells us it's the best lineup he's had, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then guess what? There's more reinforcements on the way. Bryce Miller now 2 rehab starts in the minors. Second one didn't go as well as the first one, gave up a couple of home runs, but the fastball velocity is good. He's at 97, 98. He says he doesn't feel the bone spur in his elbow at all. He feels great. Justin Hollander said he's set to pitch again Wednesday night, I think in Las Vegas. He may, if that goes well and they stretch him out to 85, 90 pitches, they may call him up after that. They may leave him down there for another start. There's no need to rush him. Got another solid start out of Logan Evans in that Tampa Bay series. That was huge. But bring him back when they're sure that he's ready to go. I had written Miller off. And in fact, I said that they should shut him down, take the bone spur out, make sure he's good to go for spring training. But if you get a Bryce Miller back, you get a Luke Raley back, who just hit a grand slam last night in Tacoma. Even a guy like Carlos Vargas, who has just been a ghost. He's been a mystery ever since we acquired him, or not Carlos Vargas, but Gregory Santos.
Yes.
Who was acquired from the White Sox 2 years ago to be a high leverage arm, to be there with Brash and Munoz, and he just hasn't gotten healthy. It's a knee thing, not an arm thing. He's close to returning. Victor Robles is way ahead of schedule and is going out on a rehab assignment next week. It's a good problem to have, but they might have a hard time figuring out where to fit these guys in.
Yeah, I mean, is this what, again, I made the joke earlier, is this what the Dodgers feel like? Is this what Houston has felt like over in their prime? Like, it's just an overwhelming wealth of good options and good problems as well. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that's, we're not too far away from September, which is the expanded roster. That's right. The extra arm, that's the extra bat. And so I think what you'll see, what'll most likely happen is when we're going to get Luke Raley back first. Well, let's talk about the pitchers first, because it seems like Bryce Miller probably might be the first one back. It might be Luke, but let's say Bryce. I think Logan Evans gets one more start. And then I think depending on how Bryce does with his one more start and how Logan does, I think that is probably going to be the switcheroo. And then I think that there's a chance they might discuss what to do with Logan Evans, but they might just hold him down and then get him ready in case they need him for a roster spot later on. My only thing with that is I would rather see Bryce get his first MLB start against Oakland than in Philadelphia. That's just my personal opinion, which I think that's the way his timing would work out, is that he would be going against Philadelphia. So we'll see how that ends up looking. Luke comes in. I think he's too good of a bat not to come back. So I think Miles Mastrobuoni is probably the guy, the odd man out there. Yeah. Even though Miles has been better than Donovan Solano, even though Miles has been better than Dylan Moore, which Dylan Moore has been one of the worst players in all of baseball all year. I just think he's got the option, so it's easier to bring him down, and then you can potentially bring him back up once the roster gets expanded. You can have his speed and versatility, unless it is look like Victor Robles' rehab is going to line up perfectly to go into September when rosters expand as well. And so it kind of feels like at that point, does Solano survive? Does Dylan Moore survive? I don't know what they'll want to do in that situation. At that point, I can make the case that Solano's value is pretty much no longer needed. This is a guy that up until before a couple of days ago hadn't had an at bat in 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, it just feels like, as great as this lineup looks, the bench is equally as horrific. And hopefully you hope that never comes back and bites you in the ass, but it kind of always does. Your warts get exposed in 162 games, and then they somehow always get exposed in a playoff series. That's just how it works. And so if my bench can be Victor Robles, who has to be on the bench because Dom Canzone says, this is my right field. Get out of here. That's what I want. I want Robles to have to take it from Canzone. I want Canzone not to give it up. Now, all of a sudden, you have arguably one of the most dominant platoons in baseball right there. And then you have Luke Raley, who's just there as an insurance. Speed. I know we joke about it. He's a good bunter, but just an athlete. And it makes this bench just solid to where now, Solano, he may not survive. Miles Mastrobuoni, he may not survive. There's not even room to call up Harry Ford, who continues to be good. Like that is what we're talking about here because of Garver not being horrific either and stuff. And so I think Garver's safe. I think Miles Mastrobuoni is the guy that's going to end up being the odd man out. And then as we get closer, it's just going to come down to Solano versus Moore. They're probably each going to get 10 to 15 more at bats in the next 2 weeks. And how things go might determine who's on the roster and who's no longer with the Mariners, which is unfortunate as they're getting ready for a real playoff run.
Yeah, the pitching thing, because they had the day off today, that gives them a little advantage. It'll be interesting to see if they push everybody back, which I could see. That would benefit Brian Wu, especially. I think they're trying to keep his innings this year somewhat under control, especially with a potential playoff appearance looming. And so if you just keep the lineup or the rotation as is, so Evans pitched on Saturday, so he'd go again potentially in the opener on Friday against the Mets, after Miller throws his rehab start on Wednesday. And so Miller wouldn't be ready to go again until the Philly series anyway. So it'll be interesting, but it's at least they have kind of that cushion, kind of that luxury of having Logan Evans pitching fairly well.
I know it's tough to think that he doesn't have a spot.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think he's a guy that, even though, they tried to convert him to the bullpen last year in short stints, maybe he's a guy that could be a long guy if you needed him out of the bullpen. It will be interesting to see how many innings is Wu at for the season already.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is, let's say this continues, right? And let's say you get down to the final week and you've got a playoff spot 100% locked up and you maybe even have a cushion for the division. It makes sense in the last 2 weeks to maybe limit Wu's pitching.
He's at 146 innings already. He only threw 121 last year, 87 the year before that, and then battled injuries in college, and he's already reached a career high by a long shot in innings pitched. And so it would seem
he's probably your number 3 pitcher in a playoff series.
Well, I want to ask you that in a second, but I just wonder between now and then if maybe they skip him a couple of times, they take advantage of some of that pitching.
Anytime you can, I would. Yep. Anytime you could, I would skip him right now. I think he's too valuable.
Yeah. But let's end on that, because that was my intended final question for you. If the playoffs started tomorrow, how are you setting up your rotation?
I might catch some flack for this, but I think game 1, I'm going Luis Castillo. I think I saw today the Mariners PR posted that Luis Castillo has the lowest ERA in Mariners history, minimum 150 innings pitched. That's better than Randy Johnson. That's better than Felix Hernandez. Like, that's cool. Like, I feel like Luis Castillo came in and we're all like, oh, that dude's the Cy Young. He's the next great one. And then I feel like because we haven't gotten to experience him in the playoffs, and then he had that, I think it was 2023, he had the brutal September, the final 2 starts against Houston, the Rangers, where he folded. I feel like Mariner fans have had a hard time letting that go. And then he was a little home run happy last year. This guy has always been a solid number 2 starter for us that has shown in the playoffs when he pitched, like he looked like a number 1. I think his playoff experience, I think he has 3 career starts in the playoffs, looked fantastic for Seattle when he did that. I feel good having him go game 1. Like, I feel like that's what I want to see, is that vet. Game 2, I would want to see Logan Gilbert if he is healthy. I feel like Logan Gilbert has not been as good as he was last year, but he has kind of also had this like bugaboo inning problem where he hasn't been able to get out of it, which is very similar to what George Kirby had last year. And so I feel like if Logan can ascend in the next couple months and get past that, then maybe he jumps Castillo. But for right now, I like Castillo game 1. I like Gilbert game 2. And then I think it's a real conversation. Can George Kirby get closer to the guy we've seen the last few years, who he doesn't walk anybody, right? Like, and it's just been unsteady. He just has felt like a number 3, number 4 pitcher this year. And Wu has pitched at a all-star level and at a number 1, number 2 level pitcher all year. 6 innings, 2 or 3 runs, book it. Like, that is him, literally book it. But you brought it up, the innings. That is a real concern. And what you're talking about is potentially him going on the road for a first-round playoff series is what you'd be talking about, or a winner-go-home wild card series game. And so that's a situation where it might be Kirby and Wu in a do-or-die game are going 1 and 2 in that situation, maybe. But for me right now, despite what I've seen from George Kirby in the playoffs historically, which has been fantastic, I think I would like to give the ball to Brian Wu in game 3. And I tell George, you're going out to the pen. Any sign of trouble, you're coming in, and you're going to be that 2-inning Andrew Miller style starter to closer, or finisher, as I think is what they called Andrew Miller. That's how I would start. If it's in a 5 or 7 game series, that's how I'd go. Is George Kirby gets the ball in game 4, and I would go with those 4 guys, and I would tell Bryce Miller, you're our long inning guy, or potentially our 6th or 7th inning. Get out of a jam, hit 99, blow the doors off a guy. And that's your spot on a playoff team. What about you?
I'm telling you, if that goes well, like if he takes to that bullpen thing, like I kind of see that as his role potentially moving forward. But anyway, we'll talk about you another time. I'm gonna disagree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you though. Luis game 1. I think he's earned it. I think he's a bulldog. I think he's the kind of guy that thrives on that. You give him that challenge and you reward him with that, he's going to take that and run with it. Gilbert game 2, Kirby game 3, and I think because of the innings concerns in a 3-game series, Wu's coming out of the bullpen for you. But again, as you mentioned with Miller, the second anyone gets a little shaky, gets into trouble in the 4th inning, boom, you bring Brian Wu out. He can come out for 2 or 3 innings and shut a team down, right? He can give you that Josh. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name.
Josh Hader.
Yeah, Josh Hader, what he did for the Brewers a few years ago when he came out for 2 innings at a time. If you had a lead in the 7th inning, the game was over. He could be that guy, plus Miller. And then in a 4-game series, right, if you need, then he can be your starter in game 4. I think the innings are going to become, especially when you consider those are higher leverage innings and more pressure innings, more stressful innings. He's going to be at 160 by the time the playoffs roll around.
Drafted a lot.
Potentially. Yeah. I think you got to keep your eye on that. But man, what a good problem to have. And let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? And one other thing that we can end on, just for the folks at home, to be even more optimistic about this road trip, everything, all the good vibes coming off the homestand, 9-1, scoring runs, pitching, defense, the whole thing on the season now, even with that homestand being accounted for, Mariners still hitting 225 at home, averaging 3.9 runs a game. On the road, hitting 282, averaging 5.4 runs a game, and that's without Eugenio Suarez and just a little bit of Josh Naylor. So something to look forward to as they get out on the road. Let's wrap it up, Michael. Again, an apology to all of you out there. We will we'll continue this thing and we'll roll this thing through the end of the season on a weekly basis, at least, unless there's reason to do it more often. Apologize for the delay. It was good to see you, man.
Yeah, man. This is so much fun. I'm so excited to see how this road trip goes. Like, I know we got football right around the corner, but I'm trying to think of the last time we had this high expectation for football and baseball at the exact same time in Seattle. Like, man, I can't believe the energy down there. It's got to be insane.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today as I was driving back from practice, thinking, I have high hopes for the Seahawks team. There's a lot of good vibes around that team right now, too. Can you imagine a 11, 12-win Seahawks team goes into the playoffs, maybe wins a game this year, and then a Mariners World Series team? Let's stop talking about it because I'm a little worried about that. I might even, when we're done here, I might decide not to publish this episode. We've been a little too positive.
I know this is weird. It feels out of body.
We got to keep that to ourselves. All right, let's do this. Let's do this right. And finish this by saying what we always do forever and always. Go Mariners.
Mariners. See you later, guys.
Time, buddy. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, guys.